So I watched about half this lecture today, which was supposedly talking about the existence of God and why secularism has stopped making arguments and started just relying on hypotheses. Hypotheses? Hypotheses. Has started relying on hypotheses for its hypotheses. Started relying on hypotheses for all of its beliefs as opposed to actual facts. I'll admit I only watched half of this lecture because I was doing other stuff, and I might get around to watching the rest of it. We'll see. I'm lazy. He started off this lecture by quoting Sherlock Holmes and saying facts, facts, facts. That Sherlock Holmes would not hypothesize about a case before he had examined the facts. And that this is also how we should examine life and examine the world around us. And that we shouldn't base our beliefs on things, including God, indifferent to the facts, and that the facts ought to be our basis for these ideas. And as I listened to this, it was something I had actually been thinking about the opposite of for a while, but I thought, yeah, he's kind of right. It seemed very reasonable anyway. Then, later that day, I started C.S. Lewis's book, Miracles, and here's a line from the second paragraph of that book. Every event which might claim to be a miracle is, in the last resort, something presented to our senses, something seen, heard, touched, smelled, or tasted, and our senses are not infallible. Double negative. If anything extraordinary seems to have happened, we can always say that we have been victims of an illusion. If we hold a philosophy which excludes the supernatural, this is what we shall always say. What we learn from experience depends upon the kind of philosophy we bring to experience. It is therefore useless to appeal to experience before we have settled, as well as we can, the philosophical question. I was like, whoa! That's like the exact opposite of what the lecturer said in that lecture I never finished. So, I got to thinking about it. This was about 2 hours ago, by the way, and then when I re-picked up this book, I thought, that's it. That's what I want to talk about today. Because, admittedly, I didn't really have a question that I felt like this is the one that I want to talk about, because often I cycle through a lot of questions in thinking about making my video, and a lot of them are stuff I really want to think about and am thinking about, but they just aren't the one for that week or that question. But it kind of hit me, and I'm like, this is it. My question is reason or the facts a sufficient reason to believe in Christianity? This is a plum, by the way. So, first, we have this view of the facts. Here's what I think. Christianity based on reason, or we believe in Christianity because it's reasonable or because it fits with the set of facts we know about reality, what we've experienced in reality. If this is our basis for Christianity, then this tells us a couple of things. First, our belief in Christianity is not dependent upon God, but dependent upon reason. More specifically, our reason, or my reason. Someone who believes Christianity based on reason can submit everything to God, can sacrifice everything to God, except the facts, except reason. God, in a sense, is in relation to their reason, or to my reason. If I believe in God based on reason, I believe in God, or God's existence is in relation to reason. It is essentially me saying to God, because my reason has decided that you exist, I will lay down my life to you. The second idea is that faith, which is not based on reason and is unreasonable, is essentially a leap of faith, or a faith that cannot be explained. This faith is a kind of existential leap that places an individual entirely in belief. It places them in relation to God. Their faith is dependent upon God. They live in relation to God. See what I'm saying about the difference? Because the first one, based on reason, presents God in relation to you, or in relation to me. But a faith that is not based on reason places the individual in relation to God, and that God's absoluteness is the basis for their faith, and is what their faith hinges upon. It doesn't hinge upon their reason, and their reason is irrelevant to whether or not they have faith. A side note to this is that this doesn't mean that reason isn't important, even central to Christianity and the Christian faith, but simply that it cannot be our basis for believing in God, because if it is, then our faith is not a trust in God, but a trust in ourselves. Another side note is that I would suggest that Christianity actually is unreasonable, even absurd. All of Christianity hinges upon the miracle of the incarnation. And if we think about the incarnation, it is the most absurd idea possible. And I don't think I yet realize just how ridiculously absurd it is. That God, the creator of life, the creator of nature, the creator of everything, somehow became a creature and was created. That he was a unity between creation and creator. And that this creation, created and creator God-man, lived his life and then died and rose again and returned to heaven. And lives in heaven as a created creator. This is just ridiculous. Now, this is to say that Christianity based on reason is not only a lack of trust in God, but is self-defeating. Now for some miscellaneous side notes. Wednesday I was going to talk about your video yesterday in this video, but I'm kind of afraid that I'm going to run out of time, so I won't talk about it, and I'll probably leave a comment on the blog later this week or maybe next week. And second side note is that this problem with basing Christianity on reason is also the same problem with basing Christianity on personal experience, because this experience can basically mean your Christianity is based on emotionalism and or your senses, which are fallible. Both your emotions are fallible and transient, and your senses just aren't solid or real. So Christianity based on emotionalism is not the same thing as Christianity based on faith. Faith per se is not the same thing as I feel that God is real.